Welcome to the Gut Fit Nutrition Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of gut health, nutrition, and fitness to help you unlock your best self from the inside out. I'm your host, Lee Murato, a registered dietitian, gut health expert, long-distance runner, and movement enthusiast on a mission to empower you with science-backed, whole-body strategies to fuel your body, heal your gut, and thrive in your active life. Whether you're here to finally break free from IBS and digestive symptoms, optimize your fitness performance, or learn how to support your gut health with natural strategies, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll explore topics like conquering digestive symptoms, building a gut-friendly lifestyle, enhancing endurance and strength performance, and more. So grab a cup of your favorite gut-friendly tea and settle in, because we're about to get gut fit together. Welcome back to another listener Q&A episode. These episodes are where I take the questions that you send me and quite simply answer them on the podcast. I've received many questions from listeners like you about your burning questions, and I'm very excited to chat through them on the show. I'll either be answering them as one question per episode, or if I get a few related questions on themes like managing bloating, supplements for gut health, or running nutrition, I'll group them into one episode. Be sure to send me your questions either as a comment on this episode, wherever you're tuning in from, on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts, or you can also send me a DM on Instagram at @LeeMurato_RD. Today's question was sent in by Clara from Ontario, Canada. Clara asks, what's the best way to diagnose IBS? So you've probably seen maybe online, or perhaps someone's told you that IBS is not a true medical condition. It's a diagnosis of exclusions, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm here to tell you that it is a true medical condition. We're learning lots more about it as research expands and improves. And as someone who works with many clients with IBS, it is a true medical condition. So currently, IBS is defined as a chronic functional gut disorder characterized by abdominal pain or discomfort, along with a range of other symptoms, including bloating, alternating bowel habits such as diarrhea or constipation, or alternating episodes of both. So with IBS, the primary or the main symptoms include that abdominal pain and discomfort, constipation, which is considered inadequate or infrequent bowel movements, diarrhea, loose, frequent, unformed stool, bloating. So this refers to like the sensation of an inflated balloon in your abdomen, and then distension, which is a bit different from bloating. With bloating, you feel like there's more air in your abdominal tract, but distension is a visible, or like you can see it with your eyes, increase in abdominal girth. So these are the main symptoms. However, there are other symptoms that those with IBS may also experience. So flatulence, or having like a lot of painful gas, farts, wind, urgency, so an immediate need to use the washroom. You know, if you've ever been out on a walk and then all of a sudden it's like you have to find a bathroom right away, you're not sure you're going to make it. Fatigue, so tiredness or low energy. Nausea is a common one as well. I find sometimes this goes along with reflux too. So if someone has maybe constipation, there's a lot of pressure on the abdomen, then they may get more nauseous. Bowel incontinence and passing mucus too. So there are actually 4 types or subtypes of IBS as per the current Rome 4 criteria. So this includes IBS-D, or diarrhea dominant IBS. So this is when the digestive system contracts really quickly. You get a transiting of products, moving really quickly through your digestive tract, resulting in those frequent watery bowel movements. So diarrhea. IBS-C, or constipation dominant IBS. So this is when your digestive system moves more slowly. There's delayed transit time for digestion, resulting in hard or difficult to pass and/or infrequent stools, constipation. And a side note with that, you can be constipated even if you're moving your bowels every day, but if your bowels are very small in volume or they're hard or difficult to pass. IBS-M. So this is a mixed subtype. I tend to see this one quite commonly. So this is when the transit time through your digestive tract actually fluctuates. So you get a mix of both diarrhea and constipation, like alternates between the two. And sometimes these stool consistencies can even occur within the same bowel movement. And then there is IBS-U. So this is considered IBS unclassified, which is where patients meet the diagnostic criteria for IBS, but your bowel habits cannot be accurately categorized into any of the above. So you're not considered to have like diarrhea or constipation, or mixed. It may actually be normal, but you have the other symptoms of IBS like abdominal pain and bloating. quite interesting. So then how do we diagnose IBS? So currently there is no specific medical test, no blood test, x-ray scope, etc. quite yet. It is still diagnosed typically after other GI conditions that may cause digestive symptoms are ruled out. But those with sort of a pathophysiological state. So things like Crohn's or colitis, where there's visible inflammation and damage in the intestinal tract that you can see in a colonoscopy, celiac disease, which is an autoimmune reaction to gluten, parasite infection, or anemia. However, if you're working with a doctor who has experience with IBS and is using the guidelines, then the specific criteria that you should go through to be given a diagnosis for IBS is known as the Rome 4 diagnostic criteria for IBS. So this is defined as recurrent abdominal pain, on average at least 1 day per week in the last 3 months, associated with 2 or more of the following: related to defecation or having a bowel movement, associated with a change in a frequency of stool, or associated with a change in the form or appearance of stool. So this is important to note that these criteria are based on symptoms in the last 3 months. So in order to be diagnosed with IBS, you would need to have had symptoms for at least 3 months. So just having increase in GI symptoms for a week, that's not an IBS diagnosis. It's something that has been going on for a longer period of time. And also, as per the Rome criteria, this is reliable only when there's no abnormal intestinal anatomy, aka like abnormal or sort of changes in the intestinal structure, or abnormality in the biochemical or metabolic processes that would explain your symptoms. So, in other words, results from the physical examination and any tests are negative and appear normal. This said, in terms of causes of IBS, I tend to see IBS more frequently now as a microbiome disorder. We know that those with IBS tend to have a less resilient, less stable, and less diverse gut microbiome. And there's a component of dysbiosis or imbalance in the gut microbiome. So this tends to be what is contributing to those symptoms. Unfortunately, we don't really have a good way to test for that now, and it doesn't come up on routine testing, but we've seen that this is really common profile in those with IBS, and it can result in those symptoms. And then there are some red flags too. So it's important to note that IBS symptoms can overlap with other conditions such as celiac disease or inflammatory bowel disease, even colon cancer too. So this is why it's really important that if you do think that you have IBS, it is really important to get a formal diagnosis, advocate to see a gastroenterologist, or at least have your family doctor do some testing to make sure that we're ruling out anything that could be potentially life-threatening or can get worse over time if not properly managed. So if you do have any red flag symptoms, be sure to tell your doctor so that they can rule out other conditions. And this includes blood and stool. So this is typically not common in IBS unless someone potentially has a hemorrhoid or fissure, which is more blood coming out like externally. It's probably more bright blood. Versus dark blood is a sign that the blood's coming from somewhere inside your intestinal tract. Anemia or low iron, unintentional weight loss, so you haven't been trying to lose weight but you have been losing weight, a fever, your symptoms are getting more severe, progressively worse, daily diarrhea or really loose stool, more than 3 bowel movements a day, bowel movements at night, so having to get up in the middle of the night to have a bowel move is not really a symptom of IBS. And then, of course, having a family history, because there's a genetic component. So if you have anyone in your family with celiac disease or inflammatory bowel disease, it's really, really important to have your doctor rule out other conditions too. So what are unreliable tests then? I did want to put these here because I always get asked about them. So the first one would include the IgG food intolerance test. So while I would love if we had a blood test that could tell us what foods we're intolerant to, we're just not there yet with the symptoms. So this includes, the IgG blood test, also the MRT LEAP test. The problem with these tests is that they come back with a lot of false positives. So they may highlight some foods that you're quote unquote sensitive to. However, they do tend to come back with flagging foods that you may commonly eat, but are not actually truly sensitive to. So I don't use these tests just because they're quite expensive and it can be really hard to work through the results of the test, and I find it tends to lead to more anxiety than help. And then the other one would be fecal microbiota testing, or these at-home gut health tests. So this is like our GI map, the Viome, the gut health check. To this date, we still can't properly quantify what a healthy gut microbiome is. And the problem with these tests is that they come up with their own parameters as to what they say is quote unquote healthy or within normal range or high, which is a red flag when a company is coming up with their own, parameters to support their product versus relying on external data. So big red flag there. And the other issue too is that they're not gold standard for diagnosing conditions like parasites, even leaky gut, SIBO, etc. So again, these tests are really expensive. The stool test can cost, I think, around $600. And they're really, really not worth it in my book. That said, like clinical stool testing that you're done with a medical doctor is something that can be used to rule out parasites, H. pylori, and Crohn's disease. However, I'm referring to the home tests that you order yourself and you send to a lab, like the GI map or the Viome test. That said, I did want to note one test that does have some good research behind it, and this is the IBS Smart Test. So we know that IBS can often develop after a severe gut infection from a parasite or bacterial infection. So last I saw the statistic was that 1 in 9 people who have a gastroenteritis or gastric infection will come out with IBS after that. So that's pretty high rates. And this can actually lead to SIBO developing, so increase in bacteria in the small bowel. And then there's often that resulting inflammation and dysbiosis. So there is actually now a validated test for the antibodies that can develop after food poisoning, and this is known as anti-CDTB and antivinculin. So although there isn't really a direct treatment for these antibodies yet, for anyone that's interested in can help maybe understand why your IBS developed in the first place and potentially help better support your treatment plan. So this test is used for IBS-D and IBS-M because these conditions tend to result in this type of antibodies increasing. It's not a validated test yet for IBS-C. So if you are interested in it, you can check it out as IBS Smart, and you do need a doctor's prescription to order it. So all that to say, I'm a big advocate for proper investigation and diagnosis. What I would recommend is that if you think that you have IBS, is to keep a record of your symptoms, bowel habits, food, bloating, abdominal pain, missed days at work for at least 1 to 2 months. Take that data, bring it to your doctor. Hopefully you have a GP or family doctor, or perhaps you're working with a nurse practitioner as your primary care, and ask to get a referral for a gastroenterologist. So a gastroenterologist is a medical doctor specializing in digestion. So this is, someone you want to see if you want proper testing and diagnosis. So I would advocate for yourself to get at least an understanding that there's nothing, potentially life-threatening going on or anything that is going to worsen without the right treatment. And just knowing that it is IBS or you're dealing with IBS is going to help you to actually manage it better by understanding what you're dealing with. So this is really important. And then from there, once you get that IBS diagnosis, build your care team. So I think that, an ideal care plan or care team for IBS would be working with a dietitian specialized in IBS and gut health, like myself. Would love to work with you in my program. Having your gastro doctor, working with pelvic floor therapist. For a lot of people, this is really important. And then also with a psychotherapist just for that mental health support too. So always advocating for that testing. I work with a lot of clients too. I know sometimes here in Canada, it's difficult to get access to testing, or it takes a long time, or maybe you get pushback from your doctor. So that said, I do have clients who have suspected IBS. We work together, and if there are more tests that I recommend that you do to rule out anything else going on, I do work with that with my patients as well. So all that to say, IBS is a true medical condition. It's estimated it affects anywhere from 13 to 20% of the Canadian population at any time. However, only 40% seek help. So I know that if it's maybe something that you've dealt with for a long time, you've really lived with these symptoms for many years. I have clients come to me who've had IBS for a couple years, anywhere to 30, 40 years. And what can happen too is maybe we begin to normalize it over time, or think that it's just something we have to deal with, or maybe you have seen a doctor and they've told you it's something that you have to live with. But I want to remind you that it is a true medical condition, and it is possible to find freedom from your gut symptoms and achieve good digestive health. So you're not alone in this journey, and there is a lot that you can do. And if you're looking for that more high quality support for IBS management, I'd love for you to apply for coaching. I have my Gut Harmony Method program, and we work together really closely to help take you from A to Z with your symptoms, break free from the bloating, unpredictable bowel movements, and really manage your IBS for the long term through integrative whole body strategies. So you can visit the show notes, and there's a link to apply for coaching, or visit Gut Fit Nutrition to find out more. All that to say, it's a true medical condition, and working with the right care team can help you diagnose it and then manage it properly. That's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of our community here. If the Gut Fit Nutrition podcast is giving you value, helped your digestion and fitness, made you rethink how you approach your gut health, consider leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're getting your podcasts. If you have questions for my listener Q&A episodes, you can submit them as a comment on this episode or send me an email at lee@leemurado.com. For more digestible IBS gut health and fitness tips, be sure to follow me on Instagram at @leemurado_RD. And to apply for coaching, shop the resource suite, or grab a freebie, visit gutfitnutrition.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be in touch soon.